Hi there, my name is April Sawtelle and welcome to my channel. Today's project is just going to be part 2 of finishing up that little baby quilt that I started yesterday. So all you're going to need for this is you're going to need your quilt top. I've got some tags here. I've got some painter's tape that I'm going to be using, some pins, scissors. I'm going to use this marker. I've got a washable marker as well that's going to wash right off. And I've got my rotary cutter. I've got a ruler. And I've got my iron going. Okay, let's get started. I'm just going to press my back in fabric and get all the wrinkles out. And make it so it'll be nice and flat. So you can use clips or you could use like painter's tape. That might help if you want to put that down on the edges to hold that tight. Just walk around and you're going to have to just like keep adjusting to get this flat. You can also use tape. I use painter's tape on one side. What I'm going to do now, I've just laid down my back end, my batten, and my top. I'm going to just lay this all flat because all I'm doing is cutting out the 3 pieces. I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to cut this out the same size as my quilt top. All I'm doing now, I'm just going to take, I've got my 3 layers here, my batten, my batten, and my top. They're nice and flat. I'm just going to go right around the whole quilt in its layers, just so I'm going to be able to get everything together to get ready to put the to sandwich it together. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut this. You may have to pull it towards you if you don't have a big enough table to cut on. And then just go ahead and go where your ruler is, where you left off, and then just continue. If you're on an area that you can't reach because your table's not big enough, you just go ahead and give it a little slide and then trim it, right? Just like that. Now you've got your 3 pieces. What we're going to do is we're going to take our, separate them. Spread them back out. And we're going to start layering this. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a piece of tape because it's pretty small. My clamps won't reach to the edges. So I'm just going to take a couple pieces of tape, and this is just my painter's tape here. And I'm just going to tape some of the sides down on each corner. That will make it lay nice and flat for the next part that we're going to do. And I'll just put one at each corner. So I've laid my back in fabric face up. And what I'm going to do is I couldn't put my clamps on, so I've used painter's tape. I've put them in all the corners and around some of the sides here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take my ruler again just to kind of flatten it. Bring out some of those wrinkles. And then I might have to adjust my tape to bring the wrinkle underneath the tape, you know, to bring it to the edge. I find that using my ruler really helps me a lot during this process. I'm not trying to get the wrinkles out, I'm trying to get the ripples out. Push all that extra fabric over to where it's supposed to be. Once you've got all of the wrinkles out, go ahead and take your quilt top, bring that down, and what you want to do here is you want to bring it right to the edges. So you're going to go kind of over your tape here, but you can fix that in just a minute. We'll get that and we'll lay that nice and flat. What we've got is the quilt back face up. We've got the quilt top face down. And we're just going to match this up as best we can. And flattening it out. And just go around the whole quilt and get it all nice and flat. Now I've got everything the way I want it. I've got my back and face up, my top face down. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my batten and I'm going to lay that on top of my quilt top that's face down. I'm using the polyester batten again because I want this really fluffy. And I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm just going to put this to the edges because I've already cut it down to the size that I want it. I'll start right here with this bottom edge. So I just want everything to be lined up. It's a little bit different than when you quilt. The other way, when we do our own binding, is when we add binding. It's a lot different than when we add binding because it has to be the same size. So it's a little. You gotta make sure you're nice and straight everywhere because you're putting 3 layers together here, all the same size. Okay, so now what we're gonna do, we're just gonna take our pins and you're gonna connect all 3 pieces here. So I flip this over. So I have the back on the top because I need to sew. I don't want to sew through the polyester face up. I want to sew through the back. It'll be a lot easier for me. So just match up your sides here. You're going to do this all the way around. And you're going to have all 3 layers here together. And then you're going to put a pin in. All right? The most important thing is to make sure your layers are together on these edges. Take your pin, push it right down to your mat, and bring it up and catch it right there. You're going to do this all the way around your quilt. So now I've got my pins here at the bottom, and I'm just going to work my way up to the top. Just constantly flattening it out. Put more pins. I'm not going to overdo it with pins. More what I'm concerned with are just the sides. I just need to make sure that the sides are secure. That way, when I'm sewing, I'm catching all 3 layers. Okay, so now what we want to make sure, I'm going to flip this over. I just want to make sure on the other side that there's no folds where it got caught up. So let's take a look there. You could catch a piece of fabric, catch each other, or on the back we could find that you have some where that happened. But you can see here, we're good to go. So what I want to do now is I'm going to take this over to my sewing machine. I'm going to sew a 1/2 inch all the way around. I'm going to be constantly making sure I've got all 3 layers underneath the seam. So the seam catches all 3 layers. But I need to leave about a 10-inch opening on one of the sides so I can turn it. So I'll just put a little line here so I'll notice where to stop. That will be my start point, and then I'll come up here. That will be my stop point. That will give me enough space to pull this through when I'm done. And I just mark that with my little marking tool. Okay, I'll see you at the sewing machine. So I'm over here at my Janome 6700 piece sewing machine. I've got white Orifel thread on the top, and I'm going to use white Orifel thread on the bobbin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at my point where I used my marker to tell me where to stop and start. And I'm going to come right in and start right here. Right at my line. That way I'm sure to have my opening and see my black mark when see my marker when I'm done. Okay, most important, make sure you're lined up and make sure you've got your 3 layers together. You're going to just hold that and you're going to take pins out as you go. So I've got my walking foot on, I've got my painter's tape, and I took this little ruler here and I made sure my needle was a 1/2 inch from the painter's tape and the edge of the foot. So that way I'm sure that I will stay at that 1/2 inch and everything will be lined up. And I'm just going to sew all the way around, making sure I've got all 3 layers at all times, touching the edge of the back, the batten, and touching my painter's tape. And here I go. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to give that a back stitch right there. All right. Using the walking foot, it just really glides right through with no hesitation whatsoever. All right, so constantly looking to make sure all 3 layers are together. Take your pin out. I always close my pins and put them right back in my bag when I'm done. So what I do now is I'm coming to a corner here. Let's try to see if you can see this. So now I'm coming to this corner, making sure my 3 layers are together. I've taken my pin out and I am going to just come right. I'm going to come right off the corner. All right, now I'm going to readjust myself. And you can see here I got a little bit of extra backing. That's going to happen because it's going to be pulling constantly. So that's why you just want to make sure your fabrics are always together so you don't lose that space in there. I'm going to start right at the top. And I'm going to bring my fabrics together. It's very easy for all of these fabrics to move around, so that's why it's important to just keep adjusting. I'm coming up to my opening here, so I'm going to need to be stopping when I hit that blue line. There it is, and I'm going to give it a quick back stitch right there and give it a cut right there. So now I've got it all sewn. All I'm going to do is I'm going to look around and make sure I see the seam on both sides that all the fabric has been sewn. All right, and then I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to make sure the same is done on that side. If you're going to make a mistake, you want to just catch it right here before you turn this inside out. That looks good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all the pins out. I'm going to take my scissors now and I'm just going to cut all of the edges off here. All that extra. And I'm going to cut the corners but not cut into the seam. I have some extra back in here. As long as you don't cut into the seam, trim it all up. Now I'm just going to go in and here's my where I have left my opening. And I'm going to just come inside, put my hand in, grab a corner, pull that through, reach in, grab another corner, pull that through, I made my father-in-law a quilt with this batten, and it is so soft. I think my mother-in-law, I'd made her one too with the polyester batten. It's so fluffy. It's really fun to work. It's fun to use. It's very good for baby quilts. All right, just shake it out. I'm just going to take a chopstick here and I'm going to go back into my hole and I'm going to push out all of my seams. So I'll just come right here inside and I'm going to go to all of the corners and make sure all of the corners are pushed out. We want that, see how that's all folded up in there? I want that all, so I see the seam there like that. Now I can see it. And I'm going to take my chopstick here and I'm still going to follow that seam, just trying to keep that pushed out as well. You just get your chopstick or your something blunt in there, but mostly the corners, because you can take your fingers to the actual seams too. See, it's all bunched up. If you work it, don't push too hard. You'll be able to get that, so it's all, so you'll be able to see that whole seam. It's not, it doesn't have that. See, that still has a little piece right there. So I'm just going to work it a little bit more to get that. There, see, now it's all pushed out. All that fabric is pushed out of that corner. You could actually make these corners rounded too if you wanted to. I didn't on this one. Lost my chopstick now. Don't want to leave that in there. I'll find that when I'm quilting. Okay. Again, let me get straightened back out so I can get back in there the right way. Okay. Just push that corner right out and almost done. You don't want to push hard enough to come through though, because then you got to go back and sew it. All right, now I'm gonna shake it out, and I'm gonna go in with my finger, and I'm gonna just push those seams out again with my finger this time. And you can do that all the way around. Now I'm going to shake it out again. And now I'm going to press this flat. And I'm going to make sure my seams are right here on, I'm just trying to pull my seams out. So here I am at my opening. You can see this is where I left that 10 inches. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this in and fold this one in until they match up. And I'm going to go ahead, and now that matches up there. They're both folded in, and the batten is folded in. I'm going to give that a good press right there. I am going to use steam. And I'm going to give that a few pins right there. That way it stays together when I go to sew it. All I'm doing is I'm just catching both sides here. I'm just going to catch both of these sides together. Go down in, put my pin in. And I'm going to pull it a little bit so I know that it's going to not have ripples in it. Okay, that's good. Now what I'm going to do, I want to go ahead and give this a little press. My seams, I need them to come closer to the edge. I don't want them folded up underneath. So I think the way I like to do it is just push the seams out towards me. I want it right on the edge. I want that seam right on the edge. So if I lay it flat for right now, this will fluff up when I wash it again. I always wash them before I give them. That way I can just pick off any loose threads or anything. Because that first washing, sometimes I don't wash my fabric first, so sometimes that first washing, you do get a lot of threads. All right, so again, I want that to be right at the top there. So it's like rolling out the seam. It snowed here last night a little bit. It's been really cold. We had like a little ice storm yesterday. I just love winter though. I didn't used to, but now I just love it. I love when I can sew in the winter. And my puppies are being super good. They're always good. The other day when I made that tutorial, oh, that was just a day. And they just would not stop just, being annoying. They are so cute, though. My puppies are so cute. And my kitties. All right, I've gone around that now. Now I've gone around that whole thing. You can see it's a lot flatter. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to go ahead and press the whole top while I'm right here too, before I start quilting it. It's not going to look real puffy when I'm done, but when I wash it, it is going to puff right back up. This is just going to open any seam that maybe didn't even get open too. I think they all got pretty open though. I pressed quite a bit. We all have our thing, and I think mine is pressing. I just kind of like it. I'm just going to take my quilt now and I'm going to put some pins in it. I'll sew this edge up when I get back over to the sewing machine and when I quilt it. So I'm going to start here toward the middle, add some pins, and just making sure it's just like flattened out a little bit. I don't want any ripples. So I'll put one in each square. I'm going to quilt this today on my sewing machine, and I'm just going to do a very basic quilting stitch. I'm actually just going to use a sewing stitch. Now I'm just going to take this to the sewing machine. I'm going to sew up my side, and I'm going to do a stitch and a ditch around the whole trim before I quilt it. Now I'm going to sew this edge shut. I'm going to set my machine about 1/8 of an inch. Now it might help you to, what helps me on this is I find a spot that's about 1/8 of an inch. So on my walking foot here, from my walking foot to where I've set my needle, I'm going to just follow my walking foot right here on the inside. Let me see if we can see this. Right here on the inside of this little toe here of the foot. I'm going to follow that little edge right there on the edge of my, this is my border for my quilt. So I'm going to just keep this following it all the way down, all the way around my quilt. And it's about 1/8 of an inch. You might have to play around, but the easiest thing I find is if you find a spot on your presser foot to follow. So now I'm not following my painter's tape. I'm only following my presser foot. So I'm going to just start sewing. And I'm going to come in. And I'll just give a little back stitch right there. Okay, and then I'm just going to follow that all the way down. I'm going to remove my pins as I go. Again, I'm just following the inside of this little toe right here. You might need to go a little slow to keep you, straight. It's easy to move around. I'm a little off right at this moment. I got to get back on the edge of that there. Not enough that I would pull stitches though. Okay, pulling the pins. But if you go slow, that probably won't happen to you. I was going a little too fast. Following that all the way through. I'm really liking working with a walking foot on the quilts. I didn't used to care about it that much, but I really like it. It really does help. It just glides right straight through. Let me show you here. We're just doing this little tiny stitch. And we've already sealed all of where we had to come through. So this nice little stitch here seals everything up on the edges. And now the only reason I'm going all the way around it is because it's just going to give it a nice look on the edge to have it go all the way around versus just that one spot where the opening was. I'm going to put on my quilter's gloves. These are just my little dollar store garden gloves, but they've got little grippies here right on the bottom. I'm going to put these on so I can be ready to start quilting it. It's easier to push it through the machine with your gloves on. It has those grippies that will grab it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my presser foot here. I'm going to find a spot on here, which is the inside of this toe. I'm going to bring my needle over. I'm going to adjust my needle here. So my needle, see my needle moving there? I'm bringing it over. I'm bringing my toe right up against the fabric here. And I'm going to bring my needle right to that. Wherever that takes me, it's going to allow me to follow the inside of this toe. So I'm just lining that all up. Once I've got my mark there, I'm going to push my needle down and I'm going to lower my presser foot. Now, I'm going to be able to follow this inside toe all the way down, and this should put me right in the center of my seams here. One thing what I keep doing, and I'm going to just try to help you on this, is when I'm doing this, I seem to go off when I'm watching my needle. So don't watch your needle. Watch what my goal is to watch my presser foot. I need to stay focused on just that inside of the presser foot. If that presser foot, for sure that presser foot's going to be right on the edge. So it's just easier if I watch that. But it's easy to get off. So I really want the stitch in the ditch on this quilt because I want it to be around this border. But I can tell you, I'm not a big, huge fan of stitch in the ditch. It's just a real precision, and I'm not good with precision. I'm too, my mind goes too fast. I'm 2 steps ahead usually by the time I have to slow down here and watch this. So for this purpose, I'm going to stitch in the ditch just this trim and show you how to do that. And when you come back to where you started, just go ahead, connect them, and just give it a little back stitch. And then you can cut your thread right there. Okay, that's done. Now, the next step. So I really don't want to do a stitch in the ditch. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go ahead. I'm going to line up my presser foot on each side of my seam. And I'm going to put it out about as far as I can, as far as my needle is going to go over there. And I'm going to sew down all the way on each side. And I think that's all I'm going to do for quilting. Let's go see how that comes out. Now I'm just going to take out the rest of these pins. I didn't want to put a lot of quilting in this because I want it to be really, really puffy. And as soon as this gets washed, because I've flattened it down now with iron in it and stuff, but as soon as it is washed, it's going to fluff right up. My little grandbaby is going to love it. All right, let's take a look. So here it is. That's how it came out. That's the front. I love how I did I love the lines that I put, and I'm glad I decided to do the edges. So it made it identical to everywhere else. So those will puff right up nicely. It'll be so super soft. The edges are going to puff right up. And this is a super easy quilt because you don't have to make any binding or anything. It's really just so much fun to make. Okay, here's the back. You can see that looks so nice on the back as well. So my little Chirpin' Birds quilt is all finished. I'm so happy at how it came out. It was a lot of fun to make. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to give it a quick wash and dry and get it delivered over to her. So if you like this one, please like and subscribe. I will be back with lots more beginner-friendly tutorials. I'll see you next time. Remember to keep it simple. Have a nice day. Bye.